All right, so get this.
Mm.
We're diving deep into this idea that just believing you're healed can actually like kickstart the healing process.
Oh, wow.
Even before you see like any physical changes.
Okay, interesting.
It's wild.
Yeah, it is a bold idea.
The source material we're looking at today is this YouTube video.
Okay.
It's from Ministries.
Okay.
And it's called Why You Need to Believe You're Healed Before You See the Manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
So are they saying that just believing can make you better?
Well, the video argues that God's healing power is always on.
Okay.
Like it's a live wire all the time.
Uh-huh.
But it's our faith that acts as the switch
Interesting.
to let that power actually flow.
Okay, so like electricity.
Exactly.
It's always there, but you need to flip a switch to actually make it do something.
That's the analogy they use.
That's a good analogy.
And it kind of implies that we all have this potential to be healed,
Right.
but we have to like engage with that potential through faith.
Do you think then that means we bear some responsibility for whether or not healing happens?
I mean, the video seems to suggest that
Yeah.
it definitely puts the onus on us to cultivate and express our faith.
Right.
But then the question becomes, what exactly is faith in this context?
Yeah, because like believing a chair will hold you up
Right.
is different from believing you're healed from like a serious illness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The video uses the classic Hebrews 11.1 definition of faith.
Okay.
You know, substance of things hoped for, evidence of things not seen.
Mm-hmm.
They also talk about faith as this like confident conviction.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
It's not just hoping for the best. It's like
Oh.
deep inner knowing that it will happen.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
not just hoping.
Right.
It's knowing.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting how the video differentiates between like
Yeah.
natural human faith,
Okay.
like trusting a chair, and
Yeah.
then the supernatural faith they're talking about.
So it has to take root in your heart.
Right. That's the key distinction. It's
Oh.
not just in your head.
Yeah.
You have to believe with your whole being.
Right.
And that's what supposedly unleashes the power to make the seemingly impossible possible.
Okay, so then the video says you have to believe before you see any results,
Yeah.
which,
That's where things get interesting.
yeah, it seems a little backwards, right?
Just
It does.
don't-
Like, how can you believe something that you haven't even seen evidence of yet?
They tell this powerful story about a man who was bedridden for 16 months.
Oh, okay.
And he's miraculously healed after reading the Bible.
Wow.
What's interesting is he didn't feel any different
Real?
until he started acting on his newfound faith.
So is that the story about the guy pulling up peace trees?
Yes.
Okay.
He didn't feel supernaturally strong until he actually started doing this incredibly physical task.
So he believed he was healed, but he still had to act as if he was healed
Right.
in order to, like, trigger the actual physical change.
That's what they're suggesting.
That's so wild.
It's like the act of faith planted the seed,
Uh-huh.
but physical action was needed to, like, help it grow.
Yeah.
Like when you envision yourself acing a presentation,
Right?
you know, you practice with confidence,
Yeah.
and that can lead to a better outcome.
Right.
Could that be a parallel here?
Totally. Instead of waiting for proof,
Yes.
you're taking action based on your belief, and that somehow bridges the gap between the spiritual and the physical.
It's like the belief sets the intention, and then the action seals the deal.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But that raises a lot more questions for me.
Like what?
Like, how do you measure that inner belief?
Bro.
Like, how much action is actually enough?
Those are great questions.
Yeah.
And the video tries to answer them by breaking down what they call the mechanics of faith.
Yeah.
And they use Mark 11.22224.
Okay, let's unpack that.
Okay.
What does Mark 11.2224 actually say?
So the verse emphasizes these 3 steps.
Hmm.
Believe in your heart, speak it out loud, and believe you receive it before you see it.
So it's not just about thinking positive thoughts. It's about, like, actively declaring what you believe.
Precisely. It's about taking ownership of your faith and expressing it outwardly.
And this is where they differentiate between what they call heart faith and head faith.
Right.
Hold on. What's the difference?
So head faith is just like mental agreement,
Okay.
whereas heart faith goes like way deeper.
Okay.
So they're saying it's about internalizing God's power on an emotional level,
Uh-huh.
not just like intellectually understanding it.
Isn't that a bit subjective, though?
It is.
Yeah. How do you know if you've truly internalized it?
Right.
Versus just, like, really, really hoping?
That's the tricky part.
Yeah.
The video doesn't offer a clear way to like measure heart faith,
Right.
but they do imply that true faith manifests in outward actions and words.
So even if you don't feel any different physically, the act of believing and speaking it out loud,
Right.
that's considered evidence that the healing has begun.
That's what they're suggesting.
Okay, now that is fascinating.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
But it also raises some big questions about, like, how we interpret our own experiences.
Like what?
If we don't see any immediate changes, how do we know if it's our faith that's lacking or if there's some other factor at play?
That's a great point, and it really gets to the heart of the debate around faith healing.
Right.
The video doesn't address those nuances, but it does emphasize the importance of holding fast to our belief even when things get tough.
So it's about trusting in the process even when doubts creep in.
Exactly, and that brings us to a key point that the video makes about the nature of faith.
Okay, what's that?
They argue that true faith isn't about, like, demanding a specific outcome or trying to manipulate God.
Okay.
It's about surrendering to a higher power
Okay.
and trusting in the divine plan, even if we don't understand it.
So a balance between belief and acceptance.
Exactly. So it's believing in the possibility of healing,
Right.
but also accepting that the outcome might not align with our expectations.
So are we saying that sometimes healing might not happen even if you have strong faith?
The video doesn't explicitly say that,
Okay.
but it does acknowledge that faith doesn't always guarantee a specific outcome.
That's hard,
It is.
especially for someone who's like desperately seeking healing.
Yeah.
You know?
It is, but the video's message isn't meant to be discouraging.
Right.
It's about shifting our focus from the outcome to the process, from the external to the internal.
So even if the physical healing doesn't manifest in the way that we hoped for,
Right.
there's still a value in like the spiritual transformation that occurs through faith.
That seems to be the underlying message.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this whole discussion so compelling.
Well,
It
yeah.
forces us to think about the nature of healing, the
Yeah.
role of faith, and the power of belief to transform not just our bodies, but also our minds and spirits.
Totally.
So they even say faith itself is evidence of healing,
Oh, wow.
even if there aren't any outward signs yet.
So it's like a force that sets things in motion.
Exactly.
It's not just wishful thinking.
Right. So that brings us back to this idea that our beliefs can shape our reality.
Yeah.
And the act of believing is so powerful, it can kickstart the healing process even before we see physical changes.
So it's not just about waiting patiently.
It's about aligning our actions with our beliefs.
Okay.
That brings us back to the story about the guy pulling up peach trees.
Oh, yeah?
He didn't just lie in bed hoping to get better.
Right.
He got up and started doing something that demonstrated his faith.
It's like he was acting as if the healing had already happened,
Right.
even though he couldn't see it or feel it yet.
Exactly. And what's so remarkable is that he didn't feel any supernatural strength until he took that first step.
It's like his action triggered it.
Yeah, it's like his action triggered the physical manifestation of his belief.
So action is a necessary part of this whole thing.
It seems like it.
This makes me think about people who visualize themselves achieving a goal, like athletes who mentally rehearse their performance.
That's a great parallel.
It's like in both cases, you're mentally and emotionally aligning yourself with the outcome.
And that can create a powerful momentum towards actually achieving it.
Okay, so then how much action is enough?
That's a good question.
Do you have to be constantly doing something to prove your faith?
Well, the video doesn't give specific guidelines,
Go.
but it does emphasize that you have to take tangible steps towards the change you desire.
So it's about demonstrating your belief through your actions,
Exactly.
not like earning it.
Right. And those actions don't have to be these grand gestures.
Right.
It could be as simple as making a healthier choice or forgiving someone who's wronged you.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
You know, just taking a small step toward a long-term goal.
So it's about aligning your everyday choices with the reality you're believing for.
Exactly.
That seems doable.
Yeah.
This reminds me of the idea of fake it till you make it,
Oh, yeah. There's definitely a connection there.
but with a spiritual foundation.
Right, because it's about embodying the change you want to see, even if you don't fully feel it or see it yet.
But what about setbacks?
Okay.
What happens when you're believing for something and you're taking action, but things aren't going your way?
That's where the confident conviction aspect of faith comes in.
Okay.
You have to hold fast to your belief, even when circumstances contradict it.
But isn't that just denial?
I don't think so.
Like ignoring reality?
It's not about denying reality.
Okay.
It's about choosing to believe in a more hopeful reality,
Okay.
even when the evidence seems stacked against you.
Even when it's hard.
Even when it's hard. It's about trusting that there's a higher purpose at play, even when we can't see it.
That's tough,
It is tough.
especially when you're dealing with like pain and loss.
Right. It's not about ignoring those feelings.
Okay.
It's about acknowledging them,
Uh-huh.
but still choosing to believe in a brighter future.
So finding a way to hold on to hope even when things are bad. But then, what if, despite our best efforts, things still don't turn out the way we hoped?
Mm-hmm.
What if the healing doesn't come?
That's a tough question.
Yeah.
And the video doesn't give us any easy answers,
Right.
but it suggests that even when our expectations aren't met,
Mm-hmm.
there's still value in just believing.
So it's not about the destination, it's about the journey.
Precisely.
So there's value in believing, even if what you believe in never actually happens.
That seems to be what they're suggesting.
That's a tough concept.
It is.
It is.
But it speaks to the power of hope and the resilience of the human spirit.
It's like we're talking about a different definition of healing.
Right.
Not just the physical kind, but like a deeper internal shift.
Yeah, the video is suggesting that true healing goes beyond just fixing what's broken physically.
Uh-huh.
It's about a transformation of like the mind,
Yeah.
heart, spirit.
So even if the illness doesn't disappear,
Yeah.
there can still be a sense of peace,
Right.
wholeness.
That comes from faith, yeah.
But wouldn't this sound like they're telling people to just accept their situation
Well,
and not seek treatment?
the video doesn't discourage seeking medical help.
Oh, hey.
Actually, it implies that faith and medicine can work together,
Interesting.
like in a complementary way.
So you can believe in divine healing while also taking advantage of medical advancements.
Exactly. It's about this holistic approach to healing,
Yeah.
recognizing that there are multiple pathways to wholeness.
This reminds me of all the stuff about mind-body medicine,
Yeah.
where doctors are recognizing that connection between our thoughts and our emotions and our physical health.
There's a lot of evidence suggesting that our beliefs and attitudes can impact our immune system and ability to heal.
So the video's message, while rooted in faith,
Mm-hmm.
might also have scientific backing.
Right, and that's what's so fascinating about it.
Yeah,
Bridges the gap between ancient wisdom and modern science.
totally.
It invites us to think about all the different sides of healing.
It's like we're expanding our definition of what healing can look like.
Right.
And that it's not always a linear process.
Not at all.
What about those times when faith just feels shaky, though?
Yeah.
When you've prayed and you've believed and you've taken action,
Mhm.
but nothing's changed?
That's where the real work begins.
Oh, okay.
The video acknowledges that doubt is a part of the human experience,
Right.
and it doesn't shy away from those tough questions.
So it's not about pretending that doubt doesn't exist.
Right. It's about navigating it
Okay.
and finding a deeper understanding of our faith.
Wrestling with those questions.
Yeah.
Seeking guidance.
Trusting that even when we're uncertain, there's a greater purpose unfolding.
That sounds like a lifelong journey, not a quick fix.
It is a lifelong journey,
Yeah.
and those moments of wrestling and questioning are when our faith is refined and strengthened.
So the setbacks and challenges, while painful,
Mhm.
can be opportunities for growth.
It's about finding the lessons
Okay.
and letting them deepen our understanding of ourselves and our faith.
I appreciate that the video doesn't try to sugarcoat things.
Yeah.
It acknowledges that sometimes, despite our best efforts, things don't go as planned.
Right, and that's where surrender comes in.
Okay.
We accept that we're not in control,
Yeah.
and we trust that there's a higher power working even when we can't see it.
It's not about giving up,
It's about letting go.
letting go of control.
Exactly.
This has really made me think about the power of belief
Yeah.
and how it can influence our health and well-being.
It challenges us to consider that healing can take many forms.
Right.
Some more visible than others.
Yeah.
It's not always a dramatic overnight miracle.
Right.
Sometimes it's a subtle shift in perspective.
Yeah.
Or a quiet moment of peace.
Yeah.
Or a gradual unfolding of a greater plan.
What stands out to you, dear listener, as like the most valuable takeaway?
What resonates with you?
What questions or insights came up for you?
Keep thinking about these ideas and explore faith and belief in your own life.
Yeah.
Remember, the journey of healing in all its forms begins with a single step, a flicker of hope,
Right.
and a willingness to believe in something bigger than ourselves.
Until next time, keep diving deep
And keep exploring.
and keep believing.